The lipstick wasn't on my face, it was on the inside of the soap pump. I noticed it because the bathroom smelled wrong, sweet, powdery, trying too hard to be clean. Our apartment never smelled like that. We kept things neutral. Expensive, yes, neutral, always. I pressed the pump with my thumb. A pale smear bloomed along the rim, the color of someone else's mouth after a long night. My husband was in the shower, humming. He does that when he thinks the world is settled. I wiped the pump with a tissue, folded it once, and looked again. The smear came back. Not a stain. A transfer. I didn't confront him. I didn't take photos. I didn't cry into the mirror like a commercial for bad decisions. I unscrewed the pump instead. Inside, the soap had been diluted, clear where it shouldn't be. Someone had added water. Someone had used it enough times to make it worth the effort. That was my choice. I made it quietly and couldn't undo it. "Everything okay?" he called, voice muffled by steam. "Fine," I said. "The soap's empty. Use the guest one." I smiled at my reflection and did something small. I swapped the pump with the guest bottle. Same brand, different viscosity. I screwed it on tight and put the original under the sink. Then I washed my hands and waited. At the kitchen counter, my MacBook chimed. A calendar alert, breakfast meeting, 8:30, Midtown. I canceled it without explanation. Then I opened our banking app of the joint account we'd had for 22 years. The interface looked normal, too normal. I refreshed. A notification slid down my screen. "Your account permissions have been updated." I stared at it long enough for the coffee machine to click itself off. He came out wrapped in a towel, hair slicked back, phone already in his hand. "I moved some things around," he said, not looking at me. "Cash flow stuff, temporary." "How temporary?" he shrugged. "You worry too much?" I wrote one line in my notebook with the Mont Blanc I keep by the door. Day 1. Soap diluted. Access changed. It felt ridiculous and exact at the same time. In the lobby, the building manager was replacing a light bulb. I asked her, casually, if the cameras by the service elevator had been acting up. She said no. I said good. We exchanged a look that meant we both understood what wasn't being said. She went back to the ladder. I went back upstairs. I made my first mistake at noon. I hovered over my phone, ready to text him a photo of the pump like a punchline. Proof. Leverage. I stopped myself. Screenshots make noise, notes don't. By 3, my phone buzzed again. An email from HR at my company, all soft edges and concern. "Can we check in later today?" I replied with one word, "tomorrow." At 6, a package sat outside our door. Plain Amazon box, no gift note. Inside was a zip bag with a broken lipstick and a receipt from a gala I hadn't attended. The date was last week. The amount was wrong by just enough to matter. I sealed the bag, slid it into the drawer with the original soap pump, and washed my hands with the guest bottle. Down the hall, my husband laughed into his phone. I didn't ask who it was. The alert hit while I was tying my shoes, not a sound, just a vibration against the nightstand, like the phone clearing its throat. "Your transfer limit has been modified." That was new. Yesterday had been permissions. Today was ceilings. I didn't wake him. I sat on the edge of the bed, finished tying the knot, and waited for the second buzz. It came 30 seconds later, polite and final. "Contact your account administrator for details." He was the administrator. In the elevator down, I opened a notes app and added one line under yesterday's entry. Day 2. Limits. The building smelled like lemon polish and someone's cologne. Too early for lies, too late for comfort. At my office in Midtown, the receptionist smiled the way people do when they're trying to help without being asked. "HR called," she said. "They said it's not urgent." "Nothing ever is," I said, and went straight to my desk. I logged into the bank again. Same numbers, different rules. I didn't test the limit. Testing teaches people where to stand. I opened a new account instead. Personal, clean, my name only. The banker asked if I wanted checks. "No," I said, "just wires." I made my second mistake before lunch. I forwarded the bank alert to my husband with a question mark. That was it. One character. He called immediately. "Why are you poking this?" he said, voice bright, already managing the tone. "I noticed it," I said. "It's temporary." "You said that yesterday," he laughed. "You're reading meaning into plumbing." "Speaking of plumbing," I said, and let the line go quiet long enough to be rude. Then I hung up. The correction came 5 minutes later. I emailed my lawyer. 2 sentences, no attachments. "We met at a Starbucks near Park Avenue because it's loud and no one listens." He slid a napkin toward me and drew 3 boxes, mine, ours, his. Don't move money out of the middle box, he said. Move yours to the left. Today. I did it while he watched the door. The barista misspelled my name. I didn't correct her. On the sidewalk, I ran into my husband outside his building. He looked surprised in a way that took practice. I was just thinking about you, he said. Then we're even, I said. He lowered his voice. HR is fishing. They always are. I can make that stop. Can you? I asked and smiled like we were discussing lunch. He stepped closer. You don't want to turn this into a story. I don't, I said. You do. Back at home, the guest soap pump was empty. Completely. The original was still under the sink, untouched. Someone had been careful. Someone had habits. At 4, HR emailed again, just a quick check-in. I replied with a calendar invite for tomorrow, with my lawyer CC'd. That closed one door. At 7, my phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. You should stop. He's protecting you. I added a final line to my notebook. Threats arrive when limits work. Then I went to the kitchen, made tea, and didn't touch the soap. The box waited where I'd left it, square and innocent by the door. I moved it to the kitchen table and didn't open it until the kettle clicked off. Steam first. Decisions second. Inside, the zip bag was heavier than it should have been. A broken lipstick, snapped clean at the base, a receipt folded into thirds, same gala logo I'd seen before. Different line item, venue services. The number was small enough to pass and wrong enough to matter. I made my third mistake right there. I held the lipstick up to the light like it might confess. Lipstick doesn't, people do. I sealed the bag again, labeled it with the date, and slid it into the drawer with the soap pump. Correction made. He came in late. Shoes off by the door, jacket hung just so. Long day, he said. Mine too. He poured water, reached for the guest soap without looking, and paused. The pump coughed, clear, thin. He pressed again. His eyes flicked to me, then away. Did we run out? He asked. Must have, I said. In the morning I walked instead of taking a car. Central Park was damp, joggers threading through the path like they were late for something important. I sat on a bench near the south end and waited. She passed twice before she noticed me. Tall heels, event black coat, phone glued to her hand. She slowed. Excuse me, I'm not lost, I said. You are. Her smile was professional. Do we know each other? Not formally. I stood. You organize fundraisers. She nodded, cautious. That's right. I had a question about a receipt, I said, and let the word hang. Not an accusation. A category. Her eyes went to my hands, empty. You should speak to accounting. I will, I said. I wanted to see if the numbers matched the story. What story? The one where everything is clean. She laughed, quick and brittle. You think I handle money? I think you know where it comes from. She checked her phone, thumb shaking. I have a call. So do I said, and stepped back. I let her leave with the relief of someone who thinks the worst has passed. At the office, the building manager met me by the mailroom. Service elevator logs are routine, she said, but timing matters. Does it? She nodded. So does who asks. I didn't ask. I thanked her and went upstairs. At 3, my husband called from a number he rarely used. We should talk, he said. Face to face. Tomorrow, I said. With counsel. Silence. Then softer. You're misreading things. Maybe, I said, but the math reads me just fine. That night I opened my notebook and added a line beneath the others. Receipts lie in groups. I crossed it out and rewrote it simpler. Patterns matter. At 11, my phone buzzed. An email from an address ending in a foundation's name I recognized from the gala circuit. Subject line, inquiry regarding recent invoices. No body, just a calendar link. I accepted and set the phone face down. The foundation's office smelled like paper and citrus cleaner. That was the first thing I noticed, which told me I was already measuring exits. The second was the chairwoman's pen. Heavy, balanced, set parallel to the edge of the desk as if gravity had opinions. She didn't offer coffee. She didn't ask how I was. She slid a thin folder toward me and said, "Help me understand this." Inside were 3 invoices. Same vendor. 3 different dates. Same service described 3 different ways. I didn't touch them. What would you like to understand? I asked. She watched me for a beat. Whether this is sloppy, she said, or deliberate. That depends on what you think sloppy people protect, I said, and what deliberate people hide. Her mouth tightened. Not a smile. You didn't come here to talk about lipstick. No, I said. I came because your name sits on the letterhead and because when donors ask questions, someone answers. She nodded once. We don't accuse, we verify. That's wise, I said. Verification doesn't need my feelings. I made my mistake then. I named my husband's company. Just once. It was unnecessary. It was also human. The chairwoman's eyes flicked to the folder, then back to me. The correction came fast. I stopped talking. Thank you, she said, closing the folder. We'll take it from here. In the elevator down, my phone buzzed. A message from my husband. Lunch? Midtown. We should clear the air. I said yes. Public places keep people honest. The restaurant was all glass and low voices. He stood when I arrived, kissed my cheek like a habit he didn't want to lose. You look tired, he said. I canceled my meeting, I said. You didn't. He smiled. Business waits for no one. Except auditors, I said, and picked up the menu. He leaned in. You're poking institutions that don't like being poked. I asked questions, I said. Institutions like those. He laughed softly. You're clever. I'm precise. He changed the subject, ordered for both of us, talked about a project that required patience and trust. I let him talk. When the check came, he paid. I noticed the card he used. Back home, the building manager was taping a notice by the elevators. Routine maintenance, she said. Service access limited tomorrow morning. Good, I said. Quiet helps. Upstairs, the guest soap was gone. The bottle itself, not empty, missing. I stood very still and counted to 10. Someone had decided to clean a problem instead of solving it. At 4, HR called again. This time, the tone had changed. Less concern, more procedure. I replied with a calendar invite for the next day and added one email address, the Foundation's General Counsel. I didn't send it yet. At 8, the chairwoman emailed. One sentence. We've paused all disbursements pending review. No apology, no explanation. I set the phone down and opened my notebook. Day 4, pause. I underlined it once. At 10, a courier envelope slid under our door. No return address. Inside was a copy of a contract I hadn't seen before. My husband's company listed as a logistics partner for the gala. The signature wasn't his, it was hers. The HR room was colder than it needed to be. Not the air, the water. 3 glasses sat untouched, condensation making little rings like quiet warnings. Thank you for coming in, the director said, folding her hands. This is just a check-in. That's what you said yesterday, I replied, and took a seat anyway. She slid a single page across the table. No letterhead, bullet points, concern about distraction, concern about conflicts, concern about optics. I didn't read it. I watched her watch me. We've received inquiries, she said. External. From whom? She hesitated. We can't disclose that. Then you can't ask me to answer it, I said. That was my mistake. Sharp, defensive. It gave her something to hold. I corrected it by softening my voice, not my spine. Schedule a formal meeting, I said. Include counsel. I'll bring mine. She nodded, relieved. Procedure is a life raft. On the way out, my phone buzzed. A text from my husband. You didn't need to involve them. No question mark. No please. At home, the apartment felt rearranged. Subtly. A lamp angled differently. The guest bathroom trash emptied. The missing soap bottle still missing. I opened the drawer under the sink. The original pump was gone too. I stood there longer than necessary. Then I did something boring and smart. I called the building manager. I need the service log for yesterday afternoon, I said. And the camera coverage for the hallway between 3 and 5. She didn't ask why. Send it through management, she said. In writing. Of course. At the bank, the manager greeted me by name. She always does when the numbers are old enough. I asked for a temporary freeze on new joint transfers pending review. She raised an eyebrow. Is there a dispute? There is a question, I said. Questions pause well. She made a call. I signed where she pointed. The pen scratched louder than it should have. I smiled at that. Small noises matter. My second mistake came at 4. I called my husband instead of letting him come to me. You went to HR, he said, skipping hello. They called me. You went to the foundation, he said. I answered an email. You're creating a trail. Yes, I said. I am. Silence. Then measured. You're going to cost people their jobs. I'm going to cost people their lies. Careful, he said. You're not the only one who can pause things. I ended the call and didn't write it down. Correction. I forwarded the call log to my lawyer with the subject line timeline. At 7, a courier arrived again. This time the envelope was heavier. Inside, amended invoices, same vendor, new descriptions, dates adjusted. Someone was trying to fix yesterday with today. I took photos. First ones, clean, metadata intact. At 9, HR emailed a calendar invite for the formal meeting. 3 attendees added themselves. 1 dropped off. The subject line changed from check-in to review. At 10, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. A voice message, calm and female. "This is the foundation," she said. "We've initiated an independent audit. Please preserve all records." I opened my notebook and wrote the last line for the day. Day 5. Preservation. Down the hall, my husband closed the bedroom door softly. The foundation's conference room had no windows. It didn't need them. The table was wide enough to keep distance polite and small enough to make lies uncomfortable. The chairwoman arrived with a finance director I hadn't met. He placed a legal pad between us and said nothing. She didn't offer pleasantries. "Walk me through the process," she said. "Not the people." I did. Slowly. Where requests originate, who approves, how vendors get paid, what gets split when someone wants to hide weight inside feathers. I didn't mention names. I pointed at steps. My mistake came early. I assumed she knew the gala schedule as well as the donors did. She didn't. I corrected by sliding a single page across, dates, line items, the small gaps where money likes to sleep. The finance director circled 1 number. "This shouldn't recur." "It doesn't," I said. "It multiplies." She leaned back. "We don't pause funds lightly." "I know," I said. "You pause them to protect the whole." She nodded once. "We're initiating a hold on disbursements tied to this vendor. Quietly." Quietly was the word I'd been waiting for. After, I took the long way out and passed through the back hallway of the venue where the gala would have been next month. Crates stacked like they always do before a show. Black cases with white labels. I recognized one of the vendor names. The mistress stood with a headset around her neck, arguing into her phone. I kept walking. That was the correction. In the taxi, my husband called. Different number again. "You think you're clever," he said. "I think I'm careful. You're about to hurt people who trust me." "Trust isn't a line item," I said. "It's what audits check when numbers don't add." He exhaled, a practiced sound. "Let's reset. I'll make this clean." "Clean is when you don't have to," I said, and ended the call. At home, I found a new folder on the kitchen counter, neatly labeled. Revised contracts. Someone had spent time on fonts. I flipped through without touching anything, photographed the stack, and put it back exactly where it was. Fixes leave fingerprints. At 4, the foundation emailed again. Temporary hold confirmed. Independent audit engaged. Please direct all inquiries to counsel. No emojis, no reassurance, just a door closing properly. At 6, my phone buzzed with a message from the mistress. "We should talk. There's been a misunderstanding." I didn't reply. Silence lets people show their hands. At 8, the chairwoman called. Her voice was steady. "One more thing," she said. "We're seeing the same vendor across 2 unrelated programs." "That's not unrelated," I said. "No," she agreed. "It's patterned." I wrote it down as she spoke. Day 6, hold, pattern confirmed. I underlined pattern and left confirmed plain. At 10, a notification arrived from the bank. Joint account, outgoing transfers pending review. The word pending has weight when it's earned. I poured water, reached for the soap, and smiled at the empty space where the bottle had been. Problems that disappear usually come back with paperwork. The email arrived before dawn. No greeting, no signature flourish. Disbursements temporarily suspended pending audit review. I read it twice, not for comfort, but for verbs. Downstairs, the lobby lights were dimmed to night mode. The building manager stood by the desk with a clipboard, glasses pushed up into her hair like she'd been awake a while. "Someone requested a spare key," she said. "Yesterday afternoon." "No," she said. "They said it was urgent." I said so as procedure. I thanked her and signed the log she slid over. My mistake came then. I asked who it was. Curiosity is expensive. She raised an eyebrow, and I corrected myself. "I don't need the name," I said. "I need the time." She pointed. 12:42. At the bank, compliance met me instead of my usual manager, a man with careful shoes and a voice that stayed even. He turned his screen so I could see the hold. "This affects joint outflows," he said. "Personal accounts are unaffected." "Good," I said. "Please note my consent for additional monitoring." He nodded. "We'll need that in writing." I signed. The pen hesitated once, like it wanted to argue. It didn't. My husband called as I stepped back onto the street. They paused funds, he said. Not a question. Yes, you went over my head. I went to the head, I said. You were in the way. He laughed thin. You think donors run companies. I think they run exits. He lowered his voice. This is going to bounce back on you. Only if it's personal, I said. This isn't. In the afternoon, I met a friend for coffee near Central Park. She runs numbers for people who don't like surprises. I told her only what she needed. She told me what I didn't want to hear. If he's patching, she said, he'll overcorrect. How? By moving faster than paperwork, she said. Watch the vendors. That was my correction. I stopped waiting. At 6, the foundation chairwoman emailed. We're expanding the scope. No explanation. Expansion is explanation. At 8, a courier dropped a thin envelope. Inside, a revised sponsorship schedule with a handwritten note in the margin. Urgent. Reclassify. The ink was fresh. The handwriting wasn't his. I photographed it, sealed it, and placed it with the others. Evidence likes company. At 10, my phone buzzed. A voicemail from my husband, calmer now. Let's fix this quietly, he said, for everyone. I didn't call back. I opened my notebook and wrote one line. Day 7, overcorrection. Then another, smaller. Watch who rushes. As I turned off the light, a final notification lit the screen. Notice of audit, formal. Attached, a list of programs. 2 were the same vendor, different names, same address. I set the phone face down and slept. The boardroom clock was wrong by 2 minutes. I noticed because everyone else didn't. Time slips when power thinks it owns it. The chairwoman sat at the head of the table with counsel to her right. No folders this time. Just tablets and a single printed memo, face down. She waited until the door clicked shut. We're cutting sponsorship effective immediately, she said. Not to me. To the room. All programs tied to this vendor are suspended. The words landed clean. No echo. Counsel flipped the memo. We've documented misclassification, circular payments, and vendor overlap across unrelated programs. This moves beyond audit. I made my mistake then. I nodded. Agreement reads like ownership. I corrected by keeping my hands flat on the table. The chairwoman turned to me. You brought questions. We found answers. That's your work, I said. I asked where to look. She held my gaze. We're transferring the file today. Treasury and state charity oversight. Taxes don't like poetry. Neither do donors, counsel added. Outside, my phone lit up with my husband's name. I didn't answer. Silence is admissible. Downtown, the courthouse hallway smelled like old coffee and patience. My husband arrived with a smile that had learned to survive worse rooms. The mistress stood a few steps behind him, phone clenched, eyes flicking. Can we talk? He asked. Here? I said, perfect. He lowered his voice. This went further than you intended. It went exactly where it belonged. The mistress stepped in. There's been a misunderstanding, she said. Invoices were drafted by... Stop, counsel said gently, stepping between us. You'll have an opportunity to explain to the right people. Her mouth opened, closed. She nodded too fast. My husband tried again. We can unwind this. I'll make everyone whole. You can't unwind a referral, counsel said. You can cooperate. At home, the apartment felt smaller. That happens when rooms stop lying. I found the guest soap bottle returned to the counter, filled, immaculate. A peace offering. I left it where it was and washed my hands in the kitchen sink. At 6, an email arrived from the foundation. Sponsorship terminated. File transferred. Point of contact below. Attached, a transmittal letter with seals, dates, and a case number that didn't care about our marriage. At 7, my husband called again. Different tone. They froze the corporate account, he said. Temporarily. Pending, I said. He laughed once sharp. You wanted leverage. I wanted daylight. At 9, the mistress texted. I can explain everything, he promised. The message cut off. Either her battery died or her courage did. I opened my notebook. Day 10. Cut. Transfer complete. I didn't underline it. Decisions that stand don't need emphasis. At 11, a notification arrived from the bank. Asset review initiated, related entities included. The list was longer than before. I turned off the lights and left the soap untouched. The call came from a blocked number while I was standing in line for coffee. The barista was arguing with a machine that refused to steam. It felt appropriate. Off the record, a man said. Your husband's firm wants to cooperate. I don't do off the record, I said. A pause. Paper shifted. Then on it, he said. We're looking at intercompany transfers routed through a sponsor. I know, I said. You'll want the addenda. Email, he said and hung up. I paid, didn't tip extra, and left. Small discipline keeps you honest. At a cafe across from my office, I met my lawyer. We didn't order. I forwarded the call log, the foundation's transmittal, and the photos of the revised invoices. He read, nodded once, and typed. They'll ask you for context, he said. Give them process, not motive. That's my specialty, I said. My mistake came at noon. I agreed to see my husband. I chose a public bench, thought the setting would keep things tidy. It didn't. He arrived early, jaw tight, hands empty. This spiraled, he said. They're freezing entities that have nothing to do with this. Patterns don't respect intent, I said. You're enjoying this, he said and leaned closer. You wanted leverage. I wanted daylight, I said again, because repetition is how facts settle. He lowered his voice. If you testify, they'll tear apart your work. Every meeting, every expense. That's fine, I said. My numbers reconcile. He laughed, brittle. You think mine won't? Not after reclassification, I said and stood. Correction made. I didn't argue. I left. Downtown, the federal building lobby hummed like a refrigerator. An investigator met me near the elevators. He asked for timelines. I gave dates. He asked for names. I gave roles. He asked if I'd confronted anyone. No, I said. I preserved records. He smiled without warmth. That helps. At 4, my banker called. The freeze expanded, she said. Related entities, temporary. Pending, I said. Yes, she said. Pending. At home, the apartment rang with absence. I found a stack of mail sorted too neatly. Someone had been careful again. I left it. At 7, the mistress texted from a new number. Please, he said you'd protect me. I replied with one sentence, talk to counsel. Then I blocked it. Mercy has a schedule. At 8, my husband sent an email with attachments, spreadsheets, explanations, a note at the top, for clarity. I forwarded everything to my lawyer without opening a file. Clarity belongs to investigators now. At 10, an email arrived from a government address. Receipt acknowledged. Additional records requested. The list was specific, painfully so. I opened my notebook. Day 12, cooperation requested. Scope widened. I drew a line under it and closed the book. As I turned off the light, my phone buzzed one last time. A system notification from the bank. Asset freeze executed. Effective immediately. No adjectives. Just action. The bank email arrived at 6:42. No subject line. Just a PDF with a seal and a timestamp that didn't care what I wanted to believe. Freeze executed. The language was spare. So was the margin for error. At 9, my lawyer and I sat across a glass table in his office. He slid a document toward me. Final filing, he said. You sign, we stop improvising. I read every line. That was my habit and my last correction. I signed where he pointed once, then again. The pen didn't hesitate. Do I need to be anywhere? I asked. Only if asked, he said. And only to explain process. Midday, the board convened without ceremony. No coffee, no pastries, just screens and faces that had decided what mattered. The chair cleared his throat. We've reviewed the correspondence, he said. Your disclosures were timely. There's no action against you. I nodded. Relief is private. In the hallway, my husband stood near the elevator, jacket folded over his arm like a flag he didn't want to raise. They've seized operating funds, he said. Not a plea. An update. Pending, I said. He smiled the way people do when they're counting exits. You won. I didn't compete, I said. I documented. At home, I packed a single suitcase, not fleeing, editing. I left the guest soap bottle on the counter and took the original pump from the drawer, the one I'd labeled and kept. I dropped it in the trash. Evidence belongs where it's finished. In the afternoon, the foundation chairwoman called. We've closed the matter on our end, she said. The referral stands. Thank you, I said. For asking questions the right way, she replied, and hung up. I walked through Central Park as the light tilted west. People argued about dogs and jogged past promises they'd already kept. I sat on a bench and opened my notebook for the last time. Day 14, execution complete. I closed it without underlining. At 7, my phone buzzed, a message from a number I didn't recognize. Dinner sometime? No context, no pressure. I smiled and didn't answer yet. At 8, the bank sent one more notification. Accounts segregated. Access restored to personal funds. The word restored sat differently than pending. It had weight because it was earned. I went home, made tea, and washed my hands at the kitchen sink. The apartment sounded like itself again. Neutral, quiet, mine. The park was quieter than it had been in years, or maybe I was. The same paths, the same benches, but my pace had changed. I walked without counting steps, without rehearsing explanations. A small luxury, learned late. A woman passed me pushing a stroller, coffee balanced in one hand like a promise she'd already negotiated. A man argued gently with his dog. Ordinary scenes, I let them stay ordinary. At a cafe near the west side, the barista recognized me from before and spelled my name right this time. I took my cup to the window and watched the street wake up. Messages waited on my phone. Work updates, a calendar reminder, a question about dinner next week. None of them demanded a defense. I'd moved out of the apartment quietly. No dramatic exits, just boxes labeled by room and a final walkthrough where nothing echoed. I kept the notebook, though I don't open it much anymore. Habits fade slower than emergencies. Work settled into its old rhythm, the good kind, the one built on decisions that hold. The board stopped checking in. HR stopped asking how I was holding up. The silence meant trust had returned to its proper place. Sometimes I catch myself reaching for the guest soap. Muscle memory. I smile, rinse my hands, move on. There are dinners now that aren't negotiations, conversations that don't angle for leverage. When someone asks about the past, I answer with dates, not feelings, and the question dissolves. It always does. On Sundays, I read on a bench near the water. A Kindle, light enough to forget, heavy enough to finish. I look up when the sun shifts, when laughter drifts by, when my phone buzzes with a simple question that doesn't hide a trap. I didn't get everything back. That's not how things work. I got enough quiet, enough clarity. Enough room to choose what comes next without checking anyone else's balance. That turned out to be plenty.